Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back another video from Totally Not Mark, continuing with the One Piece Egghead reviews. I've caught up with Egghead, I finished it last week, but I've been away for a bit, so this week we're going to cover this part and the finale. I've loved it. It was really weird. I read a comment on this from Mark's video, and I totally agree. Someone said that when Wano started, no, sorry, when Egghead started, they thought it was going to be like this weird, like kind of chilled out vibe kind of story, but that is just not the case. This has covered so much. We've learned so much in this arc, yet we still have things we need answering. I love it. And Kuma's backstory. Whoa. Right, anyway, let's get into it.
Just say the thing, Mark.
Egghead is the best One Piece arc in at least 15 years.
It's brilliant. It's so good.
It made me laugh, fall off my chair in excitement, and cry in a way no other part of the story has managed to pull out of me. Within a series of exceptional and generation-defining stories, Egghead stands out in spectacular fashion.
So, oh yeah, sweet. Yeah, so. Yeah, because I've done up to 1,000. Yeah, we've done. Yeah, they are.
To say that I was hyped to jump back into this story would be like saying it's raining a little in the middle of a hurricane. I was positively vibrating with excitement heading into this battle, and honestly, it kicks off in stunning fashion. The conflict between Luffy and Kizaru brilliantly encapsulates the broader thematic tensions between individual freedoms and institutional control. While at first glance, this battle might appear to lack the ideological opposition.
Yo, the animation looks so good on it as well. Like I say this every time, I'm manga only. Still look good.
In contrast, which define the likes of Blackbeard versus Law or Shanks versus Kid, upon deeper consideration, Luffy and Kizaru, the subtlety of their conflict becomes apparent. Kizaru explicitly states his reluctance to harm figures such as Vegapunk and Sentomaru, individuals he genuinely respects and values. However, despite this fact, he remains unwavering in carrying out his mission.
Yeah, he has to do it, doesn't he? Yeah.
Demonstrating the tragic reality of someone stripped entirely of their personal agency. In effect, Kizaru is little more than a vessel for the world government's oppressive agenda, obeying orders even when they directly oppose his personal values and desires, like a whipped dog.
Yeah, because like he says at the end, wasn't it? Garp asks, not Garp. Someone says something to him, doesn't he? And he just absolutely. It's the first time you see him like just kind of snap back. And he's like, "You really?" Oh,
Luffy,
yeah.
he ain't no dog. Conversely, Luffy represents absolute freedom and choice. His actions are always intimately tied to his desires and his own willpower, the very essence of One Piece's power system. Thus, the clash between Luffy and Kizaru symbolizes not merely physical strength, but also the stark difference between voluntary willpower and involuntary compliance. A dynamic which aligns wonderfully with a recurring theme throughout the narrative history of One Piece, especially within major operations orchestrated by the world government. Whether during the Buster Call on Ohara, the destruction of Lucia, or even the battle at Marineford, individuals within the world government frequently display hesitation or moral conflict, indicating a favor of blind obedience. And I don't think I need to point out how this mindset directly contrasts with Luffy's, the literal embodiment of agency and will in this series. We're talking about a guy who's a fucking Looney Tune rubber band cloud man, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, it's just so damn cool. It hurts my brain sometimes how great the design of this form looks. Like, I mean, look, how big can he get? Kind of handy if you ask me.
Awful.
How fucking cool is that?
Yeah. Warning. Episode was the last episode aired the week this video was made. If you don't follow the manga, oh okay, so yeah, we're good.
Adding another layer to this compelling conflict is the strategic involvement of the pacifistas.
Yeah, and like the hierarchy who control it and that, like that was really interesting.
The ebb and flow of this battle hinging upon weaker fighters and their strategic positionings rather than purely upon brute force with Luffy and the like. Characters such as Atlas and Vegapunk suddenly become vital players despite their shortcomings, highlighting, for me anyway, the brilliance behind Oda's choice to introduce these intricate command hierarchies. The shifting control of these powerful entities not only deepens the tactical complexity, but also reinforces the thematic emphasis of the value and importance of individual choice within this arc. That is, until...
Yo. Whoa. Is this how they did it in the anime?
Anus Arachnid joins the fray. For those of you listening and don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, I'm referring to Saint Saturn, you know, the
Yeah.
spider guy with the beard. Yeah. Holy shit, this guy's fighting and he is fucking huge!
Yeah, this was so sick. This is the first time any of these members have done anything outside of, like, talking to each other or giving commands. This was amazing.
However, his appearance, while exciting, marks the end of this gripping game of chess vying for control over the pacifists, fittingly symbolizing the scope of their control.
Yeah, because, like, they are the top of the hierarchy, aren't they? Or at least we thought they were.
No one is above them, not even Vegapunk. But with that said, I do have some thoughts on this dude and his pals, so hear me out. Mark's Theory Corner. The narrative richness of One Piece is often amplified through symbolic naming conventions, right? Particularly relating to these enigmatic celestial dipshit facts, right? True to their title, not the dipshit part though. These elders bear names referencing actual celestial bodies: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn specifically. This intriguing convention might initially suggest a connection to the sun. You know, planets revolving around that sun. But it's clear that Nika is the sun god, and Imu is hardly a good stand-in for the sun. I mean, he's a literal shadow monster. So that doesn't really work. But I guess he could be space. You know, the dark void. I don't know. That's Future Mark's problem to think about. However, given their antagonistic relationship to Luffy, you know, Nika's current representative in the story and our son in this case, it's more compelling to interpret these planetary figures as obstacles placed between the sun, Luffy, and the ancient weapons, Uranus, Neptune or Poseidon, and Pluton. This symbolic arrangement further highlights the Elders' role as gatekeepers to power and their relentless fixation on control. And of course that this story was written before Pluto was stripped of his planet status. Rip Pluto. With that said though, it does make me wonder, is Saturn positioned first in this story for us to engage with, not just because he's of value to Bonnie and Kuma's story, but also because he's the furthest planet of the Elders from the sun, and does that denote his strength? Like,
that's interesting.
The weakest because Saturn is the furthest relative to Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. I don't know. Am I talking nonsense? Probably.
Maybe not though.
As I grapple with trying to make sense of that, we're greeted yet again with Kuma's mysterious journey as it unfolds. But amidst this escalating suspense and honestly confusion, the tides of battle turning in favor of the enemy and Kuma's story seemingly making less sense to me by the moment, Bonnie stabs the fucking spider shadow beard monster guy.
Bonnie, mate. Bonnie.
She stabs Saturn. Holy fucking shitballs, right?
French. Classic.
I didn't know it yet, but this one earth-shattering and chest-penetrating moment marked the moment this story grabbed my heart and tore it into a million pieces. You of course know where I'm going with this. It's Kuma's past. First of all, let me just say, fuck you to whoever helped Oda write this flashback, because naively, I decided to read chapters 1095 to 1103 on Sunday, resulting in a sleepless night haunted by reflections of this story and how I might actually articulate my thoughts for this video. You see, after exploring many of your reflections online, it's clear this flashback is deeply revered, and honestly, understandably so.
It's
but personally,
so sad.
nothing else in One Piece has actually affected me quite as profoundly as this, because I am a father. The proud father of the best 2-year-old little girl in the entire world. And because of that personal connection, Kuma's story hit me like a train. At its heart, Kuma's narrative is a testament that heroism is fundamentally a choice, a deliberate act of kindness and sacrifice made in defiance of unspeakable cruelty. As such, Kuma's extraordinary compassion and selflessness sharply contrasts with Imu's unfathomable cruelty, underscoring the stark moral dichotomy central to One Piece. You see, over the last few decades, One Piece has done an incredible job communicating how alive its world truly is. This is why moments like Odin's backstory, Whitebeard's adventures, and Roger's flashbacks are seen as turning points within the series. Iconic snapshots hinting at a wider world and history extending far beyond the scope of our understanding and one character. Through these flashbacks, Luffy's mission feels more significant and the horizons he faces all the more daunting. That's the function of a flashback. They bring the world to life beyond the scope of the main character and central plot, instilling greater meaning through recontextualization. However, while different flashbacks serve different purposes throughout this tale, what sets Kuma's apart from all the others for me is that it has no one speciality that it exceeds in, because it does everything perfectly. Spanning 47 years, we follow Kuma from birth to the day he functionally dies. From discovering his tragic mother's fate and witnessing his father's sacrifice to enduring the devastating circumstances forced upon his island home. We witness the growth of a tormented boy into a troubled yet profoundly noble man in spite of it all. Given countless opportunities and reasons to become bitter, hateful, and vengeful, Oda deliberately chooses the opposite path for Kuma, delivering a powerful message that defines this narrative. That heroes are important, and most importantly, can come from anywhere. A hero can be defined as something as simple as a difficult choice made during turbulent times. This story explores that heroism through multiple lenses, ranging from deeds that are legendary all the way to deeds that are deeply grounded, from innocent dreams to paternal sacrifice, with a specific focus on how those heroic acts can move others into profound actions themselves. For Kuma, there is no pursuit of the One Piece, no high-seas adventure for dreams or treasure. Instead, this historical peek behind the curtain illustrates the extraordinary lengths one man will go to in order to protect the treasure closest to his heart. Now, I don't know what the experience was like for you guys reading every other week, but for me, reading it all in one go, I was hanging on every word.
Yeah, I needed to
I
know
felt
what happened
every
next straight
single
away, yeah.
setback Kuma endured, and through that, I realized that even as his life started to blossom into something worth living, all of that joy did was create more areas through which they could hurt this gentle giant. And so, in addition to this story being about the light humanity finds in its darkest moments, it is equally a horrifying condemnation of the worst our species has to offer. So much so that by the time I reached its conclusion, I was emotionally exhausted. Yet through the stories of Nika, even amidst this suffering, Kuma summons the courage to dream of something. A dream that one day someone could rescue him. And that day, thankfully, comes. Not through Nika, but through Ivankov and Guinea. Now much younger, it is here Kuma's childhood experiences shape his future actions profoundly. He is unable and perhaps unwilling to pursue personal happiness, such as marrying Guinea, fearing the dangers his race could invite upon her. Instead, he opts to fight for the Revolutionary Army, bearing countless burdens weekly because the safety of others matters more to him than his own desires do. Now, as a side note, because I am woefully underinformed concerning this world's history compared to a lot of other One Piece historians, the God Valley stuff has to be some of the best teasing Oda has ever done. I mean, we're talking about a moment in history that has literally shaped the world Luffy now takes part within. The story as we know it today would not be happening had Rox not fought against Roger, lost, and ultimately became erased from history that day. With Big Mom securing Kaido's Devil Fruit highlighting for me a stark contrast in motivations at play on this island. Rock's crew viewed fruits as a means of power. Celestial dragons saw them merely as a game prize, while Kuma, Ivankov, and Guinea desperately sought them as keys to freedom and survival. This multi-layered event underscores the narrative significance of God Valley, emphasizing the complex motivations and historical ramifications still resonating in One Piece today. But back to tragedy striking for Kuma, as it so often does. And honestly, in a flashback that is coated with some of the most dark imagery I've ever seen, this might just be the darkest chapter of it all. He's forced to search desperately for his best friend until he discovers that she was trafficked, fell ill, and ultimately died. Yet as this narrative continuously reminds us, heroes exist everywhere. By sacrificing herself for another, Guinea ensures the safe delivery of Bonnie to Kuma,
Yeah, man, to find out
by her mother's
where Bonnie came from and that he's not actually a biological dad and all that. It's just like, it just keeps getting sadder and sadder.
Devastating illness confined to Kuma's chapel. The man capable of taking Bonnie everywhere is now tragically unable to bring her anywhere. And as the story unfolds and he eventually makes a deal with the devil himself to cure her, Kuma is once again forced into a position where he can reach every corner of this globe but not her. Curiously, during this period, Bonnie inexplicably manifests the age fruit ability. We never see her ingest the fruit, but this made me recall Vegapunk's theory about devil fruits representing manifestations of human desires.
Yeah.
Could this fruit power have emerged from Kuma's profound wish for Bonnie to experience future birthdays, to safely and happily grow older? Now this might be speculative, but it is poetically fitting that the girl Kuma feared would die young suddenly acquired the ability to experience all of life's ages at once. Yet the emotional themes aren't the only aspect of this flashback that captivated me. Throughout One Piece, supporting characters like Kuma who appear frequently can often seem mysterious or ambiguous. However, Kuma's sporadic encounters with the Straw Hats, such as confronting Zoro on Thriller Bark, being profoundly inspired by Luffy's stand against the Celestial Dragons on Sabaody, and ultimately safeguarding their ship during their absence, gain deeper significance through the context of this flashback.
Yeah, it really did.
Moments previously
Mate, like, you instantly think about all these things, and it's like, yo, that it makes more sense to it.
Enigmatic or briefly touching are profoundly enriched when we understand Kuma's own tragic and heroic story. It reinforces the narrative that every character, even those who appear rarely, each individually live a life as complicated and meaningful as our main cast. Kuma's encounters with the Straw Hats aren't just plot devices, they represent intersections of deeply personal narratives, reminding us that the unseen stories are not always happy, yet are equally as powerful. And speaking of power, our perception of villains often hinges on their impact on the heroes themselves. In simpler narratives like Dragon Ball, Goku acts as a clear counterpoint to Vegeta, Piccolo, and Frieza. In slightly more complex narratives like Death Note, Light Yagami contrasts sharply with L. One Piece therefore then blends these approaches, often positioning Imu in opposition to Luffy. However, as this flashback vividly illustrates, heroism in One Piece is abundant and varied. Among them, Kuma's sacrifice stands out profoundly, starkly contrasting the cruelty of Saint Saturn and even Imu. Where Kuma was enslaved, Imu reigned supreme with unlimited power. Where Kuma lost control over his life, Imu exerted tyrannical dominance over all. And when Kuma attempted to save his daughter's life, the seemingly timeless Saint Saturn demanded he end his own in return. Also, this is completely aside, this guy, Saint Saturn, he looks exactly the same like 30 years prior. I don't know if that's relevant, but he sure as hell looks timeless to me. Imu can make other people immortal, question mark? However, despite possessing boundless power, control, and infinite resources, Imu and the Elders remain obsessively fixated on what they cannot possess, erupting into murderous tantrums at the mere mention of the Will of D.
Oh yeah, the Will of D, mate. Don't mention that letter. They freak out.
Meanwhile, Kuma, surrounded by endless sorrow, sees clearly and exclusively the profound love he holds for one little girl. In other words, the world isn't enough for Imu, but this little girl is everything to Kuma and is his world. This staggering and beautiful contrast intensifies the injustice and cruelty highlighted by Kuma's story, crafting a villainous force I have honestly and genuinely never despised more. In Kuma's poignant final moments, though, before his consciousness is forever extinguished, his last thought is a heartfelt wish to his daughter on a day he believed she would never see. He dies exactly how he lived, not consumed by anger, bitterness, or regret, but overflowing with love and appreciation for the bright future his treasured daughter now possesses. They say stories like One Piece can transport us to worlds more fantastical than anything we could ever imagine. And indeed, for me, this story has often been precisely that. An escape. When I first picked up One Piece back in 2020, it was literally my refuge from the uncertainty of the pandemic, granting me adventures in distant, exciting lands that I couldn't visit. Yet on this particular occasion, through the character of Bartholomew Kuma, One Piece did something entirely unexpected and different. Instead of drawing me deeper into its imagined treasures, Kuma's story guided my focus towards the treasure sitting downstairs as I write this. My daughter watching Bluey with her mom. My real treasure. The moment Kuma's flashback concluded and Oda brought us back to the present day, I honestly paused. For the first time ever, I stopped reading mid-chapter, turned off my computer, and went downstairs. Because suddenly, spending time with her felt more important than anything else. And that
Oh, that's so
is a
sweet.
gift that this story gave me.
Yo, don't make me cry,
I
Mark.
really wish I didn't stop reading halfway through that chapter, because when I returned, I realized I had put down one of the most sick, kick-ass moments in the entire story right before the kick-ass moment happened. When we jump back into the present-day action, Bonnie's desperate attack against Saturn, now enriched by the devastating context of her life, hits us with an incredible emotional weight. Yet, tragically, we quickly realize her initial strike accomplished Nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Despite knowing exactly what's driving her, despite feeling every ounce of pain, loss, and anger she's endured, the situation doesn't improve. It gets worse.
Yeah.
Bonnie's resolve doesn't strengthen in the face of adversity. Instead, she begins to crumble. Her devil fruit powers, always so dependable, now start to fail her, slipping beyond her control. Faced with this monstrous being, Bonnie sees only inevitability. She remembers losing her father, her weaknesses, and now, staring into Saturn's indifferent, unfeeling eyes, she's overcome by the thought that no one could possibly defeat this creature. I mean, how could they? And as her powers betray her, Saturn twists the knife further. Quote, its powers might allow you to transform into any future, but the more you know of reality, the narrower your future possibilities become. What an incredibly written nihilistic line from a central villain worthy of the name it's coming from. If Luffy symbolizes hope, freedom, and dreams, then
Yeah.
Saturn and his ilk represent
Definitely the
exact
opposite. My God,
tyranny,
yeah.
despair, and the crushing weight of reality. One Piece has always connected strength to the power of will and belief, the unshakable, unbreakable resolve never to surrender. But here, in the presence of hell incarnate, Bonnie's reality has convinced her of an undeniable, brutal truth. That despite her father's sacrifice and all that he fought for, all her struggles, hopes, and dreams, it seems Saturn was right. Dreams do indeed die.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the best punch in all of One Piece. A slave that just punched a man at the pinnacle of the world took place before our eyes. This moment is more than cathartic to me. It beautifully pays off the earlier setup with Lilith insisting that robots cannot entirely discard their instinct. I mean, Bonnie's reaction to this miracle is immediate and profoundly moving. Reverting back to the same small child who lost him so many years ago, she finally experiences a moment of relief. After all these years, finally, they are together again. But what's Saturn's response to this? It is to usher in the apocalypse. It's time for a buster call, and this time, we're at ground zero. Absolute chaos erupts as clone pacifistas begin shooting at Bonnie and Kuma. And while all of this is unfolding, one question remains agonizingly unresolved for me. Where the fuck is Luke?
Yeah, where's everybody?
Someone got food earlier. Don't know how that happened, though I do have a theory. What's happening? Meanwhile, the sailors executing the buster call are caught in moral turmoil, which is just chef's kiss. Should they risk confronting an Emperor of the Sea, hoping desperately to subdue him with sea prison cuffs, or should they just flee to safety and let him reach full power? Honestly, it's a fair dilemma and one that I certainly do not have the answer to. But as I'm left to consider all of this, one of my absolute favorite sequences in all of One Piece starts to unfold. You see, as Bonnie desperately shouts at these clones of her father to stop, and they actually do, initially I was convinced that what was happening was some sort of new Conqueror's haki or something unknown.
This was class. It's like, wait a minute, what? And then, yeah.
Silence falls, and in a quiet moment, Vegapunk reveals a secret. As a final act of compassion, he had embedded a failsafe within Kuma and his clones to ensure that no matter what, they would always be loyal to Bonnie. An insurance that saved her life, but ultimately cost him his. The scientist who struggled to comprehend the very intangible of humanity ends up making the single most human decision of all. Self-sacrifice born purely from compassion, devoid of logic, but full of meaning and consequence. In other words, screw that fucking hierarchy. Bonnie just usurped Saint Saturn's absolute authority through sheer command of her father's clones. I mean, fuck the Aegis Spider, that's awesome. Yet as this victory feels within reach, Saturn's earlier words echo ominously. Hope, dreams, they ultimately collapse under the oppressive reality the world government imposes. And as Kizaru moves to end both Kuma and Bonnie moments after their heartfelt reunion, it appears Saturn was tragically correct.
Nah, screw that noise. Let's go, Luffy. Gotta say as well, just another note, I fail to mention this most of the times, but like the editing on these reviews, so good. It's so well put together. Nika! And then Bonnie, well, we'll wait till when she does the the transformation.
I absolutely adore that the first time Bonnie sees Gear 5, or Nika in this case, is when Luffy swoops in to save her and Kuma. Just like her father's promises and stories, everything Kuma ever believed has come to pass. He found her. They found each other. And now, together, they found the legendary hero who will save them all.
And I also love as well because it's not been mentioned here, I love that she just never gave up on the fact that Kuma will come for her someday, because he would send her letters every year for her birthday, because it was leading up to the 10th birthday, and he promised that when she turned 10 she would be able to leave and he'd come see her. But every time he sent a letter, it was intercepted by the CP0 agent that was pretending to be a doctor, and she would just destroy it every time, and Bonnie would be upset, but like still it didn't stop her from being like, nah, he's my dad, he's going to be there. I love that.
Bonnie's astonishing whisper of Straw Hat encapsulates the beauty I addressed in Kuma's flashback, that often the greatest heroes emerge from the most unlikely, understated of places. With her tearing up upon seeing this once thought to be unreachable hero before her eyes, Luffy asks, "Why are you crying?" To which she returns with a response that squeezed every last tear from my face. "Of course I'm crying. I've been looking for you."
Yeah.
This is honestly such an incredible moment and utterly outstanding story. I'm sure there are some people out there that might have thought Kuma's flashback killed some of the pacing that was going on, but in truth, without that flashback, this moment is by orders of magnitude less meaningful, less powerful, less brilliant. Oda made the right choice. But I do have one gripe. Vegapunk's not dead. I mean, okay, that's chill for him. It's cool. I'm happy with that. I mean, I love the little applehead to death. But honestly, it's getting really hard to know when someone's actually gone.
Or not. Yeah.
I know it's always been this way to some extent, but Vegapunk surviving this attack? Well, it kind of makes Ace look like a bit of a bitch, doesn't it? Anyway, as the dust settles, something else astonishing occurs. The ancient robot,
the giant robot thing.
Oh god, there's just too much to think about. Okay,
You see, because I had a theory and it just completely went out the window when this thing glowed eyes and got up and started walking. I thought that this was going to be the armor for, when we were in Thriller Bark and what's his name resurrected that big like demon thing to fight them all or whatever, like did his zombie thing. I thought this was the armor it could have potentially had, because it was something that was frozen and then blah blah. But then no, it's not that. So yeah, that was my little thing I was waiting for, but nope.
That's not all. An ominous mystery ship emerges from Elbaf. Again, it's too much information.
Giants! Let's go!
Push that. Wait, no, fuck. Okay, it's Broggy and Dory.
Yeah!
Luffy. Big News Morgan sensationalist headlines finally serve a divine purpose. The giant crew hype is real. Let's go.
Let's go.
Put a bow on this epilogue of Kuma's story here. Throughout Kuma's tragic tale, we've always seen him portrayed as an emotionless robot, but this flashback was the first time we truly saw Kuma's eyes. Not because of some hidden lore or mysterious bloodline, but because it was the first glimpse of the human behind the facade. And now, in this climactic moment, even though he outwardly maintains that robotic exterior, the remnants of humanity left inside, the fierce love of a father for his daughter, remains unyielding. No matter how deeply buried his consciousness might be, as long as his heart beats and air fills his lungs, Kuma will never allow harm to come to his little girl. He is forever her shield. And speaking of shields, Sanji comes to make the save.
Let's go, the rest of the crew. Let's have it.
Super big in this part of the arc, but man, I am a simp for this man. He always knows how to get into the right place at the right time. But just as I thought things couldn't get any more intense, and they get so much more intense, holy fuck, Oda reminds me of one crucial fact. Despite all the insanity happening with literal gods like Nika on the battlefield, the rest of the world's key players are still making moves. Enter Blackbeard's crew. Stop doing things! What's happening? Oh my god, who's this person? Oh, gotta go to the Wikipedia. Fuck. Okay, Katarina Devon, and she's that girl from, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so her and him arrive, and their sudden appearance on Egghead was staggering. A reminder that no matter how many chaotic threads are being unraveled at once, there's always room for one more to give me a headache. But what possible reason could they have for showing up at Ground Zero, you might be asking? Well, Katarina shows us by touching Saturn and then vanishing just as swiftly as she arrived. Great! Great! Now I'm even more anxious. With her devil fruit power, can she now impersonate Saturn? And if so, to what degree? I know it's kind of supposed to be like Bon Clay, but I don't know. Is this all part of Blackbeard's broader plan? Probably.
Yeah.
Everything about this situation screams mystery, and I'm here for every nerve-wracking second of it. But Oda doesn't let them simply exit stage left. No, that would be the same thing to do. Instead, they warp to another part of the island to none other than Caribou, begging to join their crew. Now let me tell you, nothing in this entire series has stressed me out quite like this encounter. This slime ball has been living aboard the Thousand Sunny.
He knows so much. Like, he knows so much.
For ages. He knows everything about the Straw Hats, but even worse, Oda makes sure he overheard critical information regarding the location of known ancient weapons such as Shirahoshi on Fishman Island and Pluton on Wano. Oda literally kept this slimy bastard in the shadows tailing the Straw Hats since Fishman Island. 15 years of real-world story.
Crazy.
Just to help Blackbeard enter the race for the ancient weapons. Eiichiro Oda is a literal psychopath of the highest order who should absolutely be imprisoned, you know, as soon as he finishes this masterpiece of a story, but yeah, okay, we do that later. My head is honestly spinning from the implication of this brief but loaded exchange. Blackbeard's lineage is described as special by our least favorite demonic anus over here, Saint Saturn, and what's more is, Katarina boldly declares that Blackbeard's ambition is literally the world, immediately recalling the ambition of Rock's Pirates fame. Does this mean we're gearing up for another God Valley incident between Luffy and Blackbeard? Are we about to witness history repeat itself? And once again, I'm left in utter awe as to how effortlessly Oda sets these grand dominoes in motion. And just as each domino falls, it cascades into another setup to perfectly throw this story into the most tense series of chapters.
Oh, the video playback.
You see, as Vegapunk begs Luffy to keep Bonnie safe while Sanji rushes with Vegapunk in tow, all the while Luffy boldly faces off against the big anus monster, tragically, we come to realize that you cannot outrun someone who moves at the speed of light. And with that, Vegapunk meets his end. Immediately, my mind surges. Fuck, now we gotta go to Elbaf to get the answers, but at least we get this baller panel of Luffy grabbing Kizaru and defiantly confronting Saturn. I mean, that is hard as fuck. Or at least that's all I would be thinking, if not for what happens next.
Yeah.
Vegapunk, the genius that he is, teases the single biggest cliffhanger in One Piece history. Which is fantastic news for us and terrible news for my bladder, as I've literally been holding my pee in for the last 30 fucking minutes and I haven't been able to pull myself away from this story because it's so good. Fuck you, Oda. I both love you and hate you, but also just go to jail. Holy fuck. The most insane part is that from the very start, Egghead Island has been captivating, right? But every subsequent chapter continues to cement it as the single greatest setup arc in One Piece history. And honestly, at this point, maybe even my favorite arc in the story? Vegapunk's final gambit here, his contingency, his death wish, setting up a recorded message to broadcast across every naval base and snail phone in the world.
Like everywhere,
is genius. Suddenly, Shaka's earlier declaration about their immediate deaths hits harder, knowing he helped set up this very contingency. It's the ultimate act of defiance, a middle finger the size of the Grand Line itself, directed straight at the world government. To be honest, as far as I'm concerned, the good doctor's new name is Stella D. Vegapunk from now on, and no one can tell me otherwise. Furthermore, there's this 10-minute time limit thing. It's brilliant because it serves two functions simultaneously. You see, in-universe and story, it allows everyone worldwide to gather and prepare for the impending revelation. But secondly, on a meta-narrative level, it's a thrilling ticking time bomb we, the audience, eagerly anticipate while the entire world unravels.
Yeah, it's tense as well because it's like, what is the message going to be? And then are we going to even hear the message? Because it's like now they got the timer and it's like we need to find where it's coming from and stop it. You know, the world government side. It's like, no, we need to know.
Around them. Morgan's entire existence has been
this is
about
big
manipulating news coverage. But Vegapunk's determined to ensure this truth is heard exactly how he intends it. But there's just one issue. It's forbidden.
They're all here. Oh my god.
This absolutely astounding and impeccable double-page spread of the Five Elders is, shockingly, the first double-page spread since Dressrosa. I repeat,
Oh.
that's like fucking 10 years ago. Oda truly is a fucking psychopath. He edged his audience for an entire decade only to deliver one of the most epic and menacing panels ever put to paper. 5 enormous shadow monsters appear, and the only figure standing defiantly between them and Vegapunk's final act of rebellion is none other than the Cloud Man himself, Monkey D. Luffy.
Mate. I suppose, yeah, all that stuff does happen in the next bit. Oh, mate, yeah, Egghead really surprised me. I'm glad that Mark released these reviews because it's made me go, right, I need to catch up. And I'm probably going to carry on reading it. I don't want to have to wait until Mark does another review, like in another 3 years, and then I start reading again. But again, I do buy these volumes as they come out, so I wasn't really that far behind, really. I just had to like go online and read another. What chapter did this go up to? This went up to. This is the one that's currently out in England. 1,100. I had to read another 25. I read a little bit more after that. I had to read another 25 chapters after the fact. And then you get. How many in this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you get like 12 in each volume. So I read as much as I could in physical form. But anyway, love that. We'll definitely check out the final part of the Egghead review during this week. And then I've seen on Twitter that Mark's going to start doing a Dragon Ball Daima review. So we'll get these reviews for One Piece, and then we can watch the Daima ones as they come out. Sick stuff, good times. Thanks very much for watching.